This call is being recorded.
Welcome to the artwork of CP, everyone. And just a quick programming announcement. For those of you who know where I'm going to be next week, there will be no recording on Saturday unless I have the energy to do it. Because for those of you that do not know what I'm doing next week, I'm actually going to be hanging out and hanging out with all my podcast buddies who actually listen to this podcast and listen to all my other podcasts too, the Artwork of Jobs and Ask Lynn, and we're going to be having a great time in Orlando. And yes, I am traveling despite the coronavirus. Yes, I'm traveling. Yes, my conference knows about it. Yes, everything knows about it. And as I was just telling Danielle, that I am not going to stay at home and be a hermit. And this trip has already been booked, and I'm not canceling the trip. I'm not canceling the hotel. I'm not canceling anything. So, and trust me, I'm more scared about the airports than I am the actual conference. The actual conference will be fine, but I'm more scared about the airports due to my weakened immune system. But I am doing it anyway. I am traveling with coronavirus, and well, actually not with coronavirus, but I will be around people that will spread their germs. Hopefully, hopefully I won't get sick. Hopefully that I will only get altitude sickness, but altitude sickness in itself is a sickness. So there we go. So then traveling. So that's why um you guys will hear from me sporadically throughout the week, but it won't be on a consistent basis. It will be on a consistent basis when I get home. So that's that. And so that said, I Danielle and I have decided to actually talk about the pet peeves that really drive us nuts. And if you guys joke around with the coronavirus that has already hit California, it's already hit Seattle, it's already hit because people coming back from Japan, people coming back from China and Japan and all that good stuff. So they're bringing it in to the U.S. So if you guys joke around with the coronavirus, you guys won't be my friend on Facebook. That's for dang sure because um don't screw with anyone's psyche when it comes to the coronavirus. We're dealing with a very serious illness. And what I've noticed last night in my conference buddies have been very respectful as to not tease me about the coronavirus. But what I've noticed on Facebook and is people are now teasing other people about either getting the coronavirus or seeing it on bags or seeing it on wet one bags. And so do not, do not tease me about, do not ask me why I'm traveling with while the coronavirus is going on. You guys know why I'm doing this. Do not ask me, do not tease me, do not do anything towards anyone um, about the coronavirus because that will piss, that will peeve me off to no end, and there's nothing I could do. I mean, as I said to Daniela, there's nothing I could do about people traveling internationally. There's nothing I could do about traveling myself. This is just the way it is. This is just the way it is, and this is just the way it's going to be. And I I'm done with people teasing other people, including myself, about the coronavirus. I mean, we're dealing with a very serious disease here, and no, this is not a laughing matter. No, and call you don't call out the disabilities here, and you don't do that. You know that I'm a disabled advocate. You do not call the you do not call me out for my SHIT. You do not do that. You do not say, well, when I won't accept you on my podcast because you're not a coach. The fact of the matter is, I have a huge announcement when I get home from um, my conference. And I will be telling you guys something that I will be doing, and then you guys will completely understand me. But you guys can't get get on my nerves enough so that I will be fearful to fly because I am actually looking for speaking gigs all across the country. I don't care where they are. But I'm actually looking for speaking gigs that will pay me to speak. This one is out of um, out of my pocket. This one is out of my pocket, and what I'm going to try to do every single year, you guys, is pull out of here being Aspen, Colorado, um, and what I'm going to try to do is take um, two trips, one personal and one business, either two business trips and skip the personal one, or what, all depending on how it lands out. And then I was, and I find it ironic that I was lucky enough to go to Orlando in October, and yes, and with, and I find it ironic that I'm going back, and I will love it once again. And so you guys don't get to tease me about how much I'm traveling because traveling and um, podcasting are one of my favorite things ever. That's why I'm giving up my stable income, my day job, because I want to educate people about cerebral palsy day in, day out, boots on the ground. I want to walk into these special ed um, classes and teach and just help because cerebral palsy a is a unknowing adult disability. You know it as a kid's disability, but do not, do not call me the all wood, and I won't even mention the all wood on my podcast. You guys got to give it up with the all wood because I'm alien. I am not, and you guys have got to give it up teasing the disabled about the coronavirus. You guys have got to give it up about coming at the disabled as if we're freaks of nature. That's the only way I can put it without getting very aggravated on my podcast. And quit the staring. Quit the absolute staring at people as we go through the airport. I mean, it's not cool, you guys. It's not cool. And what ends up happening is that um, I get freaked out by by traveling. I'm fine on airplanes. I'm fine in airports. Airports don't do it to me, but um, airports don't do it to me. But I get freaked out when people stare at me, sit there and stare, and they just think I'm a freak of nature. So you don't do that. You don't do that to a person who's in a wheelchair or has a blind cane, being a white cane, or you don't do that to people that have service animals. Thank you very much. And we'll get into Danielle and I will get into another full on podcast episode about emotional support animals. Yikes! That's a little scary, but we'll leave that for another podcast episode. And so, Danielle, do you want to take me off the soapbox and chime in as to what drives you nuts?
Yeah, I do.
What really ticked me off is when people can't understand me, and when I get my phone out to type, they type back to me and not talk to me.
So, so basically, what's um, really upsetting to you is not necessarily the staring and the um, not necessarily the staring and the talking about you as a disabled person. It's more of a language barrier thing. And when I bring Danielle down to one of these podcast conferences, you guys, because here's the ironic thing that I found out, and this is also what drives me nuts, is there are one, two, three people with physical disabilities at this podcast conference. Three people. And that drives me crazy. Three people. Two of them are blind. Two of them are blind. Maxwell, Ivy, and David, who I will have the pleasure of meeting David, but Maxwell, Ivy, and I have spoken twice on this podcast, and I plan to bring him back on after podcast movement. But the fact that the rest of the podcast, the podcast and podcast movement community is able-bodied, and it's and they're nuts. They're nuts not to bring more disabled people down, and it's absolutely crazy to me that only 3 people at the podcast conference will have physical disabilities. And I am not talking about PTSD. I'm not talking about emotional triggers. I'm not talking about um, PTSD, post traumatic stress syndrome. I'm talking about physical disabilities. And I'm not talking about how you necessarily cope with a disability. I'm talking about being present, being down there, being banging and drum about cerebral palsy, and I find it ironic. I am wearing green today for Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month, which starts tomorrow. I find it ironic that I am going down to this podcast conference during Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. I find it ironic. I'm going to hit the ground. I'm going to do my best on teaching people about disabilities. And yeah, I find it ironic that so many people who do conferences on a daily basis forget about the disabled and forget about those who can't speak. As Danielle said, it really peeves her off when you guys, when she gets out her phone or iPad at this point to speak, and you guys don't respect her. I mean, come on, you guys. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, or maybe it does, to sit down with a person and let them speak. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and that drives me insane. That drives me insane. Now, some people won't do it. Some people will. Some people will let the disabled speak. Others will not. I happen to have a friend who is not able to speak, but yet he knows what he wants. And he, his name is Max Blank, and I'm working with him. I'm being a content creator for him. But the fact of the matter is that these conferences, and I'm going to change that this year. The fact of the matter is they don't embrace the blind, the deaf, the visually impaired, the they barely embrace the vets, let alone the blind and the deaf. And so don't be surprised if I, and yes, I applied to um, speak at Podcast Movement, and they haven't gotten back to me. They'll get back to me at the end of the month. But um, last year I got put on the virtual ticket. So, but the virtual ticket is perfectly fine. The virtual ticket is perfectly fine. But what about boots on the ground? And what about hugging people with disabilities? What about actually respecting people with disabilities? And when they do have something to say, you keep your mouth shut and let them speak. And I will keep it mild because I will keep this podcast mild. But don't don't necessarily think that we are dumber than a box of rocks and don't have opinions. Well, I mean, that's why Danielle and I started this podcast. That's why Danielle wants so badly to go with me to a podcast conference. I haven't decided which one, but eventually you're going to see Danielle and I together, and eventually you're going to see and hear Danielle and I speak together in person. And yes, you can say we're coping with this is the only time I will allow you guys to say you're coping with a lot. Next week, I'm letting the word coping come into my vocab because people that truly listen know that I've had a challenging 2019 and barely decided to go to podcast. And if it wasn't for my good karma, and if it wasn't for me doing what I'm doing, which is I was scrolling on Twitter, um, there's no way that I would be um, doing this. And so I just want you guys to know that do not treat pe- people with disabilities disrespectfully. And I know you guys are going to be listening to this on a plane on Wednesday, on a plane on Sunday, on a plane on Tuesday, if you are flying down there on Tuesday. I'm probably the only one. But do not, the next time you meet a disabled person at a conference or anywhere for that matter, you need to let them use their assistive devices. They're smart enough. Thank you. Um, they're smart enough to bring assistive devices with them, and you just need to let them speak. You just need to let them speak. And with this coronavirus going on, the whole world needs to quit teasing people in general, disabled or not, about the coronavirus because we're going to be traveling and we're going to be dealing with it just as much as you are. And if you see me in, if you land up seeing me at this conference, at least open the door for me and my aide. And yes, I will have a full time aide with me, but I am not I'm the type to say, can you please open up this door? And I'm the type to make my needs loud and clear. But the fact of the matter is that, and I've already sent them them at Podfest an email saying I want to speak at Podfest next year because I need to speak. You guys have got to respect any any, and I am not talking about just young people with disabilities. I'm talking about the baby boomer generation, which I um I honestly think the baby boomer generation is now getting the fuzzy and the lollipop too because they become disabled. So let people speak. Number one, respect those with disabilities, and if I say go away, just let me be and show me that you can respect me next week and show Danielle that you can respect her. And Danielle, do you want to say anything else?
Uh, uh, no, no, so to snow and the to the people so you can hear the American story.
What she said, just stop and listen to people with disabilities. And yeah, just it may take us a couple of minutes to get our thoughts together, but oh my goodness, we have a boatload of thoughts. And my boatload of thoughts are going to be starting with on Tuesday, and my boatload of thoughts are actually going to be starting on um, on Monday actually because I have podcast interviews to do. But just listen to us. Just listen. And the funny thing is that I just spoke to my editor, who edits my YouTubes, who edits my podcast. And the funny thing is, he said, "Well, when do people probably think?" And this didn't cross my mind. People probably think that you are advocate for the disabled, but you yourself don't have a disability. And I'm like, that's a good point. That is an excellent point. And so, no, I'm not going to necessarily be in the YouTube um, podcast, YouTube conference space, unless you guys invite me to speak. But I will be in the podcasting space for the rest of my life for what I can do. And that's why I'm giving up my day job so I can educate people about cerebral palsy on a bigger stage. And so, yeah, so those of you who are listening to this episode know that as of May 20th, I'm available. And I'll be barking and squawking about that on Monday. And all I'm going to do with the rest of my life is teach people about cerebral palsy to make this world a better place. To have you guys um, quick Google about cerebral palsy and just ask us and don't this is the other thing I wanted to tell you. If an aide is standing behind Danielle or myself, don't necessarily ask the aide because we know more information than our aides do in 2 seconds flat. Let us speak and the aides are just there to support us. And do not, do not, just I can't, I can't bang the drum any louder, you guys. I'm banging the drum as loud as I can. And those of you who know me personally know that I'm doing this next week for, for a very specific reason. I want to educate people. I want to um, embrace people. I want people to understand I'm gay with cerebral palsy. Yes, I said gay with cerebral palsy, but I want people to understand that cerebral palsy is a bigger picture than you guys think it is. So as of May 20th, I am available. And that's all I'll say about that. And I I will see those of you next week down at conference, and I am super excited to be educating people about um, cerebral palsy. I almost feel like bringing. I have a shirt that I acquired from somewhere that says "Don't Diss My Disability." I almost feel like bringing that and putting it on and wearing it to conference one day, and then but I I have a shirt that says "Don't Diss My Disability," which is was a nicer shirt. It's a T-shirt, but I almost feel like because I'm going down there in Cerebral Palsy Awareness Month. It's not. I didn't plan this. The universe planned this for me. Someone else planned the podcast um, conference. But all I want to do is educate people about cerebral palsy. But the first thing you guys need to do is stop and listen to those who have disabilities. And for those of you that won't be at the fun and games and hugs, and yes, I said hugs, um, this next week, I will give you guys a breakdown on what went on, and so make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm at Win Ask Win 622, and make sure you follow me on Facebook. You guys can search my name on Facebook because I'm sure there are a lot of people posting pictures and videos and everything else, but I will give you guys an audio breakdown of what I learned and how it will make my podcast bigger and better and stronger. And so I'll leave it at that. But there, do you want to lead everyone out?
Yeah. 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 For, uh, uh,
Thanks, you guys. And I hope you enjoy the week. And I hope this gave you food for thought. And I hope that if you are traveling, stay, stay safe, you guys. And God knows I will, but um, just be aware that you can't you can't touch the disabled. The disabled are very sensitive when it comes to speaking their minds, and just ask us how we feel. And that's all I'll leave it at that. Have a great week, you guys, and I'll see you when I get home. Bye, you guys.
bye.